The shift into the third movement was something they all felt without Elias naming it. The fire was the same fire, the storm was the same storm, but the quality of the listening had changed again. Deepened, the way water deepens as you move from the shallows into something colder and less navigable. They were past the point where any of them were looking for explanations. They were in the territory where you simply receive what is given and hold it as carefully as you can. Priya had put her headlamp on. Not turned it on, just put it on, the band around her forehead, the lamp pointed forward. Preparation without acknowledgement of what she was preparing for. Lena noticed this and wrote it down. Then she crossed it out. Some observations belonged to the moment and not to the record. The third movement, Greta said. The edge. The edge, Elias agreed. What changes? In the stories? Elias considered this. The first stories are about things you can encounter, he said. The second are about things that encounter you. The third, he paused. The third are about the places where the distinction stops being available. Sam looked at him. Where you can't tell the difference between encountering and being encountered. Where the question stops making sense, Elias said. Yes. Marcus had his eyes on the fire now rather than the opening. Something in his posture had changed in the last hour. Not relaxed, but settled, the way a man settles when he has assessed a situation fully and made his peace with the assessment. He said, Buzzard Rock. You know it? Elias said. I've been near it, Marcus said. I didn't go to it. Why not? Marcus was quiet for a moment. The person I was hiking with said not to, he said. They said, there's a place up on the ridge that you don't go. I asked why. He paused. They said, you come back different. Elias nodded, slowly. They were right, he said. Buzzard Rock is a named feature on the Mount Rogers Ridge. It's on the topo maps, it's in the trail guides, it's a legitimate destination with a legitimate view, and hikers go to it regularly, and most of them come back exactly as they left and think nothing particular of the place beyond the view, which is good. The ones who notice it are not most of them. I noticed it in my 4th year in the district. I'd been to the rock a dozen times without incident. It was part of my regular patrol route, a point I checked and logged and moved on from. On the 13th visit, I walked to the rock's edge to check the view for weather coming off the Tennessee border, and I looked out, and what I saw was not the view. I want to be careful here. I want to be as precise as I can about something that precision is poorly equipped to handle. What I saw was the view, the ridge running southwest, the balds, the tree line, the sky, all of it correct, all of it where it should be. And simultaneously, not instead of, not replacing, but simultaneous with something else, another arrangement of the same space. The ridge in a different season, the trees different, the sky a different quality of light. Laid over the first view, the way 2 photographs are laid over each other to show how a place has changed, except it wasn't change I was seeing. It was co-presence, the place as it was and the place as it also was, both fully real, both fully there, requiring my eyes to hold 2 things at once that eyes are not designed to hold at once. It lasted perhaps 10 seconds. Then it was just the view, one view. The correct one, the ridge running southwest in the ordinary light of an ordinary afternoon. I stood at the rock's edge for a while. I felt the way you feel after a close call, not frightened exactly, more the retrospective recognition of something that could have been dangerous, having not been, or not quite been. I logged it as a possible visual disturbance, possible dehydration, went back to the station, drank water, ate dinner, slept. I went back to Buzzard Rock the following week. I stood at the edge. The view was the view. I went back the week after that. Same. It took me 8 more visits before it happened again, and by then I had stopped expecting it and was simply doing my patrol and checking the view for weather. And it happened again. The same co-presence, the same double exposure of the place as it was and the place as it also was, held simultaneously for 8 seconds before it resolved back to the single view. This time, I paid closer attention. This time, I was looking for what I was seeing. What I saw in the second layer, the other arrangement of the same space, was not the past. I want to be clear about this, because the obvious explanation is that Buzzard Rock produces some kind of temporal vision, that the second layer is a historical image of the place, that the geography of the ridge is somehow holding an older version of itself that certain conditions make visible. That explanation is available, and I have considered it, and I don't think it's right. What I saw was not the past, because the things in it were not behaving the way things in the past behave. They were present. They were in the place the same way I was in the place, occupying it, attending to it, doing what they did there. And they were aware of me. Not frightened, not responding to me in any particular way. Aware of me the way you are aware of someone who has just come into a room you're already in. You register them. You note them. You continue what you were doing. I registered them. I noted them. What they were continuing to do, what they were always doing when I saw them, on the occasions after the second time when I began to go to the rock specifically to observe rather than to check the view, was watching. Standing at various points on the ridge visible from the rock, standing in the tree line below it, standing at distances I could not precisely judge, watching the rock, watching the view from the rock, watching, I came to understand over months of these observations, whatever came to the rock and stood at its edge. Watching the hikers. I spent 2 years making careful observations at Buzzard Rock before I told anyone. I went at different times of day and different seasons and in different weather, and I noted every instance of the second view and what it contained and how long it lasted and what the quality of the observation from the other side seemed to be. I kept a separate notebook for this, a notebook that I still have, that I could show you if we were somewhere other than a blizzard shelter on Whitetop Mountain at 3 in the morning. What the notebook contains, reduced to its essential findings, the second view occurs at Buzzard Rock approximately 1 time in 10 visits with no predictable pattern of triggering conditions. Duration ranges from 4 to 40 seconds. The entities visible in the second view are consistent across all observations, the same locations, the same general configuration, though I cannot determine if they are the same individual entities or if the positions are simply always occupied regardless of who occupies them. They are always watching the rock. They are always aware of whoever is standing at the rock's edge when the second view occurs. I have never felt threatened at Buzzard Rock. I want to say this clearly because everything else I've said about it sounds like it should produce threat, and it doesn't. Standing at the rock's edge and seeing the second view, feeling the awareness of the things in it, it is disorienting, and it is strange, and it produces in me a quality of vertigo that is not entirely unpleasant. Like standing at a great height and feeling the pull of the drop without any inclination to fall. What it feels like, most accurately, is being seen by something that sees very well. The person I finally told was a seasonal ranger in her 3rd year, a woman named Olivia Chen, who had been doing serious backcountry work since she was a teenager and who had the specific quality that I've learned to look for in the people I tell these things to. She received information without immediately trying to resolve it. She could hold the thing in her hands without squeezing it into a shape it didn't have. I told her about Buzzard Rock and the second view and the notebook. She listened to all of it. Then she said, "Have you looked it up? The name, Buzzard Rock." I said I knew why it was called that. She said, "Not the birds, the name before the birds." I didn't know what she meant. She was from this county, born here, grown up here, the kind of local knowledge that came with roots. She told her that her grandmother had another name for the rock, not Buzzard Rock, a name that translated roughly from the old usage as the watching place, not a place to watch from, a place that watches. Her grandmother had told her, "Don't stand at the edge for too long." She'd said, "The ones on the other side are patient and they remember faces." I asked Olivia if she'd ever experienced the second view. She said, "Once, the first time I went there." She said, "I went back twice after that and it didn't happen, and I decided twice was enough trying and I stopped going." I asked her what she'd seen. She said, "What you saw. The double exposure. The things watching." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "One of them was closer than the others, right at the tree line below the rock." She said, "It was looking at me specifically, not at the rock, at me. And when the second view ended and I was back to the ordinary view, it was—" She stopped. She said, "I could still feel it looking, even with the second view gone, even standing there in the ordinary afternoon." She said, "I could feel it remembering my face." I've been to Buzzard Rock 47 times since my first experience of the second view. I've had the second view on 11 of those visits. I've felt every time the quality of being seen by something that sees well. I've felt, on the visits after the second view, the specific sensation Olivia described, the continued awareness, the sense of being held in someone's attention even after the visual experience ends. I've thought about what they're watching for, what the watching is for. I don't think it's predation. In 47 visits, I have come to no harm at Buzzard Rock, and I have never felt the quality of being assessed the way prey is assessed. I think the watching is what it is: attention, a sustained, patient, ancient attention directed at a place where the two arrangements of the world are close enough together that they become briefly visible to each other. I think Buzzard Rock is a place where something very old looks at something relatively new and finds it interesting, maybe, worth the sustained attention of entities that have been watching that ridge since before there was a name for what they were watching. I think we are, from their side of the veil, something like what the second view is from ours, a strange co-presence, a double exposure of the world as they know it, and something additional that they can see for a few seconds before it resolves away. I think they find us as disorienting as we find them. I think they keep coming back to look anyway. So do I. The shelter was quiet in the specific way of a space where something has just been said that changed the air of the space. Not a heavy quiet, a clarified one. The kind that comes after something complicated becomes simple. Sam said, "The watching place." He said it slowly. "That's what it is. On the other side, they call it the watching place." Her grandmother called it that. I don't know what they call it. "But they remember faces," Sam said. "That's what her grandmother said." Sam looked at the fire. "You've been there 47 times," he said. "They've seen your face 47 times. Elias looked at him across the fire. Something in his expression shifted, the smallest movement, barely visible in the firelight, the thing that moves in a face when a conversation has arrived somewhere close to something true. 11 times, Elias said. The second view happened 11 times. The other 36 visits I was just a ranger checking a view for weather. But on the 11, Sam said, they saw you on the 11. Yes, Elias said. And they remember. A pause. I have to assume so, Elias said. Lena had stopped writing. She was looking at Elias directly, the journalist's assessment fully suspended, something more human and more immediate in its place. She said, "Why do you keep going back?" Elias was quiet for a long moment, long enough that the question had settled fully into the shelter before he answered it. "Because," he said, "it's the closest I've found to understanding what I've been trying to understand for 32 years. He looked at the fire. "And because," he paused, "because I think on the 11 occasions when they've seen my face, they've been asking the same question I've been asking, and I'd like to be there when one of us gets close enough to answer." Greta said, 3 stories left. 3, Elias said. The 7th was the place where the distinction breaks down, she said. What are the 8th and 9th? Elias looked at her. Then he looked at each of them in turn. Priya with her headlamp on her forehead, Sam with his sleeping bag around his shoulders, Greta with her metal cup and her 30 years of these mountains, Marcus with his settled assessment, Lena with her pen held loosely in fingers that had stopped needing to write everything down. "The 8th," he said, "is about a dying man on Iron Mountain Road and what he told the rescue crew." He paused. "And the 9th is about a February summit." He paused again. A longer pause this time, the pause of someone arriving at the edge of something. "The 9th one happened here, on this mountain, 30 years ago." Nobody moved. The fire burned. Outside, the storm held Whitetop in the dark, and inside the shelter, the night had 3 stories left, and the last of them was going to be his own, and they all understood this now, had understood it for several hours, and the understanding sat with them the way the thing had sat at the Lewis Fork fire, patient, present, tending something. "Tell the 8th first," Marcus said. Elias nodded. He fed the fire and told it.